welcome to Leaders Talk, where we meet leaders, thinkers, and trailblazers. Greetings, everyone. Now, when you think about the state of Samoa, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Is it the first rays of sunlight that greet the world? Or Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock, that puts Samoa on the map? Today's guest hails from this Pacific island state, Samoa's Prime Minister, Madam Fiami Naomi Mataafa. This is her first visit to China since becoming Prime Minister. During her 9-day trip across 8 cities, what impressions has her time in China left on her? And what are her hopes for the future of China-Samoa cooperation? Here's my conversation with the Prime Minister of Samoa. Okay, Madam Prime Minister, welcome to Beijing, China. This is your 6th visit to China, but this is an extraordinary one. You visited 8 cities in 9 days. What are your main takeaways from what you saw here in China?
Very informative. I think the program, although lengthy, has been very constructive for us in terms of informing us of China's progress, following up on some of the projects that we have collaborated with China over many years, especially down south, Guangdong.
Yeah.
Many of the early Chinese settlers in Samoa, coming over 1900s, were from that area. So we have those people-to-people anchored relationships. We feel that we're at a place that we know more because of our Chinese community in Samoa. In Nanjing, then there was another element, in terms of your country's history. And like all countries, we have periods in our history that are significant. But I think on this trip, I think my last one was probably 4 years ago now, perhaps 5. What is notable always with China?
Yeah, what changed?
Yeah, is the pace at which it changes. My main takeaway, as a leader with sort of a broad overview, is that internationally there are 2 key platforms for development. Energy being one of them, especially the renewable energy. And secondly is the whole digital and information technologies. These are the transformative platforms of which many countries now are premising their development. It's the new way of work. So everyone's very much on board. But you see in China how much more they're doing, how much faster they are responding. From a government perspective, what I'm really appreciating is the reform approach, being always mindful, given the information flow of what government needs to do, how it can respond. But what strikes me is a mindset of wanting to be right on top of that information and reconfiguring how government works to more efficiently and appropriately respond to the needs, whether they be internal or external. So that has been one of my major takeaways.
During her 9-day visit from November 20 to 28, Samoan Prime Minister Fiami Naomi Mataafa traveled to 8 cities across China, from Taizhou in Jiangsu Province to Shenzhen and Huizhou in Guangdong Province, and finally to Beijing. In Taizhou, she toured the Taizhou Polytechnic College as well as green energy enterprises, gaining insights into China's vocational education development and technological advancements in renewables. In Shenzhen, she went to the Futian Mangrove Nature Reserve to learn about conservation, ecological protection, and environmental awareness. In Huizhou, she explored a marine aquaculture base where she learned about artificial breeding techniques for species like large yellow croaker and Chinese bahaba. She also visited Hua Luogong Middle School for an immersive experience into aspects of Chinese cultural heritage. Noting China's rapid development and accomplishments, Prime Minister Fiame expressed Samoa's interest in learning from China's modernization efforts, particularly in poverty alleviation and green development.
Was there a particular moment or an episode of interaction that you had with students, farmers, or technicians there that really strikes you?
We were taken to a centralized data center, right, where the information is coming in to better advise the administrations on how to respond. You've mentioned the students. Once again, it's a level of investment. What I noticed was a very broad scope of learning, not just academia, but also cultural elements, value elements. It's good to see. On one side, it seems very modern, right, in terms of aspiration, abilities, and what has been able to be achieved. But on the other side, too, being very careful, to preserve principles and values of Chinese culture.
You visited a middle school in Guangdong, if I'm correct,
Yes.
Whereby you showcased your Chinese calligraphy skills.
Yes.
Quite remarkable, Madam Prime Minister. The calligraphy that you crafted, the Zhong character, was really well done. Congratulations.
Oh, really?
I think so. We think so.
Calligraphy is a particular art, right? And throughout the ages, your people have written in that way. It almost requires a very artistic mindset to be able to do the calligraphy. But it's such art if you just look at it.
Yeah, not easy. You also went to a mangrove nature reserve in one of the locations in Guangdong, whereby you remarked that China truly made efforts in protecting the ecosystems there. You fell for it because in your home country, you made a top priority to protect the mangrove trees in your country. What kind of synergy do you see formulating between our two countries when it comes to ecological preservation?
What I saw was a much more advanced, right, progress in the management of mangroves. It has to do with resources, of course. But what I particularly enjoyed, and I don't think we have paid as much attention in terms of our mangrove work, is providing the environment for the other animals, the birds, the fishes, and so forth. We're more still at the point where we just want to ensure that we don't lose the mangrove. But the further development that has been done at that center, really it's become a refuge or a place where, the animal life can thrive. We see a bit of it in Samoa, but it's not being done intentionally. We just try and ensure that we don't lose the mangrove in the first instance. But I think our planning needs to be a lot more extended about the ecosystems that is supported by our mangroves. That's a huge project. It's a great demonstration of what can be done with our mangroves and the benefits that it derives.
Madam Prime Minister, I want to talk more generally about our bilateral relations. We know that Samoa was among the first country in the region to recognize People's Republic of China and establish diplomatic relations. And next year, we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of our diplomatic relations. How do you reflect on this journey? What keywords would you use to characterize the current state of our bilateral relationship?
Mutual respect and trust. I think that's a very fundamental element that makes for a successful partnership. And 50 years is not a short period of time. I think at this juncture, especially speaking with your leaders, it's an apt time to review our journey to consolidate on what has been done well, and also to, what are the next steps in terms of what has been able to be achieved. The disparity of size. China is such a large country, and, Samoa is a smaller country. So the ideas and concepts, and I always say this as a person from a small country, internationally, everything is about big things, right? When it comes to development funding, climate funding, or so forth, usually the talk is it's too small, right? Your projects are too small. So we keep on saying, well, why aren't we developing models, that suit smaller countries? And I think this is a continuing dialogue we have with our partners, because we've had this long time with our partnership with China. We can really explore and further the potentials of what's already been done, like agriculture. So a lot of the work has been research-based. Now I think we need to be moving on to creating value-added, business-based activities. So, it's another development along that association. You do the learning, the piloting, but how do you sustainably carry it forward? It's being able to develop, mutual, whether it's business interests or trading development.
You've just had a summit with President Xi Jinping in Beijing. Are there any episodes, discussions, conversations that you're particularly excited about that you can share with us?
Your government has outlined 3 global initiatives. What I like about the approach that China takes is that it looks at the issue. It says, this is our problem, collective problem, right? And China is putting forward, these initiatives that would assist those in addressing those challenges, creating opportunities. I like the approach. It's not sort of like we're going to do this for you, but China says these are our problems. They provide the opportunities for countries to take up, and I think that particular approach is a responsible approach. It's about thinking about the greater good, and it's for everyone. I mean, it is part of China's foreign policy.
Yeah, those are considered the organizing principles of the Chinese foreign policy.
Yes.
The Chinese doctrine, or President Xi's doctrine, the 3 initiatives that you just referred to.
Yes, these are initiatives that can help assist us reach resolutions to those problems. It's a very practical and responsible approach to global issues.
Samoa, located in the South Pacific, comprises the western part of the Samoan Islands, including the main islands of Upolu and Savaii, along with 8 smaller islands. On November 6, 1975, Samoa became one of the first Pacific Island nations to establish diplomatic relations with China. It was also among the earliest to sign a Memorandum of Understanding under the Belt and Road Initiative. Today, one can see the embodiment of China-Samoa partnership all across the country. From Faleolo International Airport to the Samoan government building, from the International Convention Center to the nation's largest sports complex, and from the China-Samoa Friendship Park, Cultural Arts Center to Apia Park, each landmark a testament to the strength of the bilateral bond.
Agriculture is another area where the 2 countries work very closely with each other. We have set up joint projects and joint ventures, from demonstration farms to pilot zones to training programs. Good examples include Samoa-China Agricultural Technical Aid Project, as well as the Piggery and Feed of Farmers Training Program. You've been to some of these programs yourself. How do you see these collaborations, benefiting communities and farmers in Samoa?
Well, food security, right, first and foremost, is high priority for any country. So these projects that you've alluded to does first and foremost meet those needs, but also as a productive sector, it is another economic pillar for the country. One of the latest developments that your government is assisting with is to bring in heavy machinery, because our land is volcanic, so it's quite rocky. So to clear, large areas of land, we do need to have more heavy agricultural machinery. So, the thinking is evolving of how we practice agriculture in different ways, but appropriate to, the land that is available to us. But I think in terms of increasing trade, value adding to agricultural produce, one of the cities down south were interested in breadfruit. Breadfruit. Now, breadfruit doesn't travel very well, so the best way is perhaps frozen or made into flour. For the flour, it's gluten-free, so it has that element of need, and many people now need gluten-free produce. With, I think, the assistance of research and practice, that is another product, that can be value added and enhanced and increase our, trading to a market like China.
I want to talk about climate change, Prime Minister Fiami. That is a very important issue. Few countries in this world feel the urgency to step up our fight against climate change as much as your country does. Samoa, help us understand the urgency of this fight for your people and your communities.
Yes. Well, we always talk collectively in the Pacific. Samoa, as an island country, is probably not as pressured as some of our lower-lying atoll countries. So when we talk from the Pacific, not only because we're smaller, we can't move from one side of the country to another if it's affected by climate change because of the smallness. So it's a very immediate thing. It's not something that's far off. So it's loss of land, possibility of loss of sovereignty. How does that place people in terms of, what country are they from? Yeah. Can they still live there? Is there going to be mandatory relocation? How does that happen? These are all the ramifications of climate change, for small island states. So, the Pacific has been very strong in voicing this on the global fora, bringing to the attention of country. Samoa, we are currently the chair for AOSIS, so we continuously carry that message, not only for the Pacific, but all SIDS.
I want to shift gears a little bit, Prime Minister, and talk about your society. In Samoa, some 25% of people claim Chinese ancestry and Chinese heritage. And how do you see these community, people of Chinese heritage, contributing to forming and shaping Samoa to what it is today, and also in bonding and helping China-Samoa relations to grow and to prosper?
Yes, well, they're very assimilated. I mean, they are, for all intents and purposes, Samoans. They hold Matai titles, chiefly titles. Yeah. They engage in their communities in the traditional sense. They are, of course, business leaders and have made the contribution you allude to our economic growth.
Samoa is often described as the paradise of the South Pacific, known for its white sand beaches and vibrant cultures. How would you introduce your country to potential visitors, especially those Chinese who are watching this program? Why should they go to Samoa?
There's still a lot of natural beauty in Samoa. You know, the landscape, the sea, but more importantly, too, a very strong and vibrant culture. These days, with franchises and so forth, places are beginning to look the same. We offer a destination where if people travel to us, they know they're going to a different place. You know, it's a place, not only, you know, the physical aspects of it, but cultural, spiritual elements to it. From my own point of view, when I visit a country, I'm really interested in, you know, how the values of the country, their cultural practices, how people interact, because it's all done differently. And I think that's one of the points about visiting other places.
Madam Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time. I hope you've enjoyed your 9-day trip.
I have, extremely. It's been such an informative visit. We've been very warmly and generously hosted. And I think we've had some very honest sharing, you know, about development.
Very good. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Prime Minister. Now, during the interview, I was thoroughly impressed by the candor of the Samoan leader, especially when she talked about the fact that we're collectively fighting climate change and we should not point fingers at one another. And also, she said she's not a big fan of the concept of creating an Indo-Pacific strategy because it sounded as if smaller states like hers, Samoa, are automatically signing up for something they're not willing to be part of. Now, thank you for watching this episode of Leaders Talk. I'm Wang Guan in Beijing. I'll see you again next time.